Welcome to Flashpoint, the Fire Inside podcast, featuring leadership and team building principles designed to ignite your inner fire. Now your host, international speaker and best-selling author, Frank Viscuso.
Welcome, Rob and Ryan. Rob Fisher, Ryan Scellick, friends of mine, guys that I wanted to invite you onto this show because of your passion, your hearts, what you guys stand for. So welcome to Flashpoint. Thanks for being here.
It's good to be here, Frank.
Very cool. Now you guys are my West Coast buddies. I guess if there was an East Coast, West Coast war, where thankfully there is not that I know of in the fire service, maybe we'd be against each other. But the fire service, I believe, is a family worldwide. Although sometimes it doesn't always act, or maybe it does act like a family. Maybe it argues like a family sometimes. But I know that we have a lot in common, and really it comes down to the word passion. But the reason that I really wanted you guys on, I'm wearing a shirt representing your brand, Young Officers on Fire, and the conference that you guys run, Riding the Right Seat Fire Conference. I want to talk about those things. I want to talk about everything. And I want to just get right into it by starting with, and I guess, Ryan, I'll start with you. Just talk about what led you into this industry, the fire service, to begin with.
Yeah, Chief. So interesting that I was actually on a podcast last week. It's called Finding Strength. Shout out to them. And it's sponsored by Deer Hollow, who does like mental health counseling in and outpatient for the fire service. And it was live and in person, and the podcast host is a trauma counselor. And so they didn't give me any questions, and it was kind of, everything was off the cuff, but he was kind of pushing a little bit. And I realized that I always answer this with the first part and never the second. So I'll give you both parts. I'm going to try to start including that in my story, because it's, it kind of got forgotten, I guess. But the first part is that my great uncle was a battalion chief at Tacoma Fire Department. And I grew up going to see him at the firehouse. We lived on the other side of the state, but every time we went there, it was like, got to go see Uncle Kenny and go see the trucks and see the guys. And he was a big figure to me. And so I always tell that story. But the second part is that he died when I was about 16, and it wasn't line of duty death, but like so many, it was right after he retired. And I went to his service as a 16-year-old, and I saw, something that you immediately knew was so much bigger than anything I'd ever seen. I'm from a town of 7,000 people, and here I am. There's, engines and ladders. The police department shut down the streets, and he was loved. And so it was a big deal for me. And I became a volunteer, a cadet, about a year after that. So that's my story of how I kind of found my way in the fire service.
That's cool. Listen, I am the son of a firefighter, the brother of a firefighter. You just said something that I think I want to just pause and talk about for just one moment, which is when you said, he passed away shortly after he retired. When I was contemplating retirement, I did, like everybody else does in certain times in their life, I did my pros and cons list. And first of all, I'm active. As you guys know, I travel throughout the country and I speak. So I had something that I'm very passionate about that I could keep doing, writing books, going out speaking, and still being in the fire service. So that was like a pro, like I'm so passionate about it. One of the things that I thought about was this: a lot of people that I know in our industry were leaving, I guess, after 30, 32, 33, 34, 35 years. 3 or 4 years later, I was attending their funeral. And I remember thinking about this. This was actually on my list. I'm looking at this going, I want to get as much living in as I can, because I'm still passionate about the fire service, obviously. But at the same time, I had young kids, and now they're 12 and 13. In the last 3 years, I had to spend incredible quality time with them and my wife, to where I'm like, all right, so that turned out to be a really good decision. So I just want to touch on that, because a lot of people that listen to this show are at that age or at that point in their career where they're like, I have these conversations all the time. Yeah, I'm thinking about retiring. I'm just not sure yet. And Rob, you've been in the service for quite some time. Can you talk about what led you into the service?
Yeah, I mean, before I get there, I just want to say, good on you for retiring and putting the time in with the kids. You know, we are friends on Facebook and see each other at conferences, and I love like just the recent post you said that over the next few days, your kids got like 8 baseball games going on, and you're super excited for it. You and I share the love for baseball and family, and so being retired and having the ability to be able to do that, I mean, there's just no way that you could buy those years if you stayed in the fire service. And I'm on the edge of retirement myself. I mean, my kid is 35 years old though, but I have 2 granddaughters, and my wife and I built our house near them down in Vegas so that we can be closer. And so I'm right there. I'm really considering, when is this going to happen? Because I want to be around for the grandkids and see them grow up. But how I got into the fire service, my story is in 1973, spring of 1973, my mom took me to the fire station in the neighborhood. I grew up kind of on the outskirts of the downtown area of Seattle Fire Department. And I visited the station, and there were these monstrous men that greeted me, brought me into the station. They had a ping pong table there. It was this little tiny station. And I was just amazed at these guys. And at that time, it was all men. And I was impressed by them. They were fun. They were huge. They were just, and then they got a call. And when they got the call, and they all jumped on the rig, and there was 3 of them riding on the back, two or three of them riding on the back tailboard back in the days, and still do that. And they took off out of the station. And I just remember the guy sitting there going, "See you later, Robbie." And I'm going, "Oh, I got to do that." And I was, 5 years old. Next door neighbor to my grandparents was John Riss. He's a disabled Seattle fireman back in the day. And so I talked to him a lot. And so the connection started when I was really, really young. And then, of course, Emergency, the show came out, and it was an attraction for a lot of us at our age. And that just fed my fuel for this. Like, looks like this is my calling. And I truly believe this is my calling, because everything that has gone on in my life, this has been such a joy to be a part of. So then I get into high school, I get in the cadet program, just like Ryan did. Right out of high school, I got right in the fire service, and I've been doing it. This is my 36th year in the fire service. And I've basically worked for the same department this entire time. And I've been able to raise a family, have a large group of friends and, brothers and sisters throughout the fire service across the nation. I have the opportunity to teach across the nation. I've been very fortunate. So it's been quite the journey.
And you've been pretty active. You're one of the people that and there's several people, Rick Lasky's on this list, Jason Hovelman is on this list. You're one of these people that I almost feel like I'm on tour with, because I'll go somewhere and they'll be like, "Yeah, we just had Rob Fisher here," or "Rob Fisher's coming next week." And I'm like, "Well, that's pretty cool. He's a good friend of mine." I still remember, early conversations we had. And I like, before we started recording this podcast, we were saying, hey, wherever this conversation goes, we're going to let it go. We have a love for music, you and I, and a lot of the same type of music. But it's funny because you turned me on to that one documentary. Well, what was it about? What was the name of it? The music one?
Sound City.
Sound City. So I watched Sound City probably 4 times on airplanes, traveling from one place to another, going, "This is so great." And then they came out with that, that 8 or 10 part series that the Foo Fighters came out with. I think it was on HBO. That was almost like identical types of documentaries. It was so cool. But one of the things, and this is why I'm even going in this direction, I said to my wife the other day, I said, if the Foo Fighters come around here for concert, we have to go there, because when I'm driving somewhere and I'm looking to just, hey, I just want to kind of just get motivated about something, I could put in some of their songs as an example, and it just kind of pumps me up, re-energizes me. Everybody needs something to get them to maintain a level of passion for something they're doing. What is something that you guys do to help maintain your passion for the fire service, because first of all, most of the people that listen are the fire service. You guys are successful in this industry. What's something you do to kind of decompress, because you can't take it home with you? This is something I learned about anything. I got a friend that's a general in the Army. He says, when I leave it on the field. I'm not bringing it into my house. When I leave, I take my dog for a walk. I bring my kid down and play baseball with him. I'm going to go, fishing, something, but I'm emotionally and mentally disconnecting from here. What are ways that you disconnect? For me, it's music, it's a walk on the beach, it's writing. But what are some of the ways you guys do to disconnect, to re-energize and stay passionate?
Ryan, you want to go first?
Ryan, I guess I could start with you.
Sure. I think it's physical things for me. It's for a while I was big into triathlons, local, short, up to attempted an Ironman, and I left that behind in COVID because we couldn't do it anymore. And my kid had been doing jiu-jitsu for a while, and so my oldest and then my youngest was getting to that age, so we both joined, and so it's kind of something we can do together, and it's a great way to just get a lot of energy out of your body and be around a whole different group of people, and then get to be there with the kids is just kind of like an added benefit. So for me, it's physical things like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I noticed, I saw on Facebook that you had it was some kind of martial arts. I saw that you were involved with. I actually was going to talk about that. And you also coach basketball. Do you coach any other sports?
No, just basketball currently. That's the only thing in my forte I think I'm capable of coaching. So I'm pretty amateur at the jiu-jitsu. I'm a pretty white belt, so which is cool too. I think that's one thing that's attractive to it. While you get to a point in your life where you want to be good at everything, and as you get older and you kind of are around more things, you've been there, and you're kind of the person who's done the things, and you're at the kind of the higher chain of the level, and you go to jiu-jitsu and you're just humbled every time. It's you've heard the term white belt mindset. I'm the rookiest rookie in that place. And so, all of my stature from anything else means absolutely nothing in that place. And that's one of the things I kind of love about it. So
I've heard that before. I have several friends that have fought in the UFC, most notably Frankie Edgar. And one day I'm at a party at his father-in-law's house, and there's 6 UFC fighters sitting at the same table with me. One of us was not like the others, and that was me. And at the time, all 6 were ranked top 10 in the world for their weight classes. And they were so humble. And so and their boxing coach, Mark Henry, was there too. And I actually brought that up and I said, you guys, I've been around some pro athletes before that are kind of distant, maybe even a little cocky. You guys are all pretty humble. And one of them says, well, it's easy to be humble when you're sitting next to someone that chokes you out 5 times a day.
That's
good point.
That's
right.
No
Good point. How about you, Rob?
As you can tell with my round face, I'm part Italian, so opposites attract. So Ryan is the hard worker and likes to sweat it out, and I like to eat it out. I like to cook. I collect wine, so I enjoy wine. My wife and I travel a lot. We're at least traveling internationally once or twice a year. So I would say that, outside of family, I do a lot to try to spend time with family, and because we live in 2 different states, and maybe we can discuss that later on. But anytime that I'm home, it's I'm never really unplugged. I mean, that's I guess I should start by saying, really the only times I'm unplugged is when I'm on an international trip, when we're really traveling, and I can really separate. And even then, I'm still kind of watching on Facebook, or still kind of we'll touch on things, but that's probably the most time that I'm unplugged. Outside of that, I'm always still kind of connected, which can be, a bad thing, but I'm able to manage it really well. But yeah, it's food, cooking, enjoying wine, and travel. I do like music. I mean, as you and we've discussed our musical backgrounds, what we enjoy. I'm fortunate. My brother's in the music industry, and so like when we talk about Foo Fighters, he did tour with the Foo Fighters when he was with this other band. And when we talk about like family, the Foo Fighters, and they're just one of, I'm sure, a handful of bands, but like the Foo Fighters, everything is family, including everybody. And so like looking at a group like the Foo Fighters, they're one of my favorite groups as well. I can listen to them. I can listen to, Frank Sinatra. I'm into big band stuff. So my musical genre goes all over the place. I just can't listen to today's rap or, I guess the modern rap today. It's a little hard, but music is another way that I kind of disconnect.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever saw that Carpool Karaoke with the Foo Fighters. I'm sure you have. I love when they're all in the van together and the host says, "When's the last time you were all in one van together?" Thinking like they were going to say 20 years ago. And they said, about 4 days ago. What? Really? Yes, just a few days ago. Because they still were that type of band, and I'm sure they are. And but you get that sense from them and maybe I think Dave Grohl is my favorite artist out there today because, first of all, because every time you see these clips on YouTube where he'll bring an audience member in or he'll have a somebody come in and be a guest guitar player, singer, whatever. I love the way he always like raises that other person up. You could clearly see he's doing it. He'll bring in somebody that had one hit in their career and he'll make the biggest deal out of that hit. Like, guess who we have coming on stage with us? And then it seems like everybody's geeking out over this person that they never even were thinking about for 20 years. And I've seen him, I feel like he's actually revived some people's careers. And I think that's just the coolest thing, man. But I often say, like, we need more people like that in all industries, this industry, fire service, people that are lifting up other people constantly. Because one of the questions I wanted to talk to you guys about, and I'll start with you, Rob, is what do you think we're either doing right or what we're doing wrong? What are we getting right and what are we getting wrong? And somebody asked me this question, like, what are we doing wrong in the fire service today? And this was my answer. I said, look, it seems like if we're not busy fighting fires, some people are busy fighting each other on social media, like with criticism about how they do this job or we all get caught up in this, myself included. We all get caught up in this. But at the same time, I think society's going in that direction anyway, where people are almost being taught through the media to hate or fear the opposing point of view. And I'm saying, let's continue in the fire service to be the people that set the bar higher, where we say, look, we can agree to disagree. Because, this is a cliche, and we've said this kind of thing for years, but nobody asks a person what their race, religion, political preferences are before running in a building to save a person. Building's on fire, somebody needs help, it's another human being, we go to help them. And I want to keep that pure in the fire service. So when somebody asks me, what are we doing wrong in the fire service? I'm like, we're leaning a little bit towards that divisiveness to say, if you agree with that, then we can't be friends, which I don't think that should be the case. But how about you, Rob? I'll start again with you. Is there something you feel, hey, we're getting this right, this is good, or we're really getting this wrong, this is bad?
All right. Well, first of all, what we're getting wrong is we're painting fire engines something other than red. I'm kidding.
Hey, listen, and we're going to keep Euro helmets out of the conversation.
Right? I'm not even going to bring it up because Ryan always goes into seizures every time we talk about it. So I think what we are doing right is we are getting into the science behind a lot of the stuff that has been shared for many years, and it's backing up a lot of what we're doing. So it's good to see that the American Fire Service, politicians and everybody are putting forth the funding that allows for us to look at fire dynamics, to look at what's going on with our nozzles, the types of nozzles, to answer all the questions, so we can stop bickering and we can stop arguing about what is right, what is wrong. And so I think that's been good. And we, I don't want to we're not going to bring up the European helmets, but when in the European Fire Service, they've been doing this for a long time, putting forth the effort to kind of study stuff. And they don't just take something on without making sure that it works or doesn't work. I mean, one example is PPV. in America is like everybody made this movement in the 80s to PPV, and nobody really ever studied it. It's just like, hey, look at this. And in Europe, they have fans, and they're still studying. They haven't adopted it as this is the only way we're doing ventilation or the type of ventilation we're doing. So I think that's good. I'll even say that social media has been good, and it has allowed us to share information. And generally speaking, there's been a lot of good sharing going on out there. Things that we are struggling with, that we're not doing so well. I mean, this is partly why why Ryan started this, and maybe he can talk a little bit about how Young Officers on Fire got started. But my part was coming in and just wanting to do more for mentoring. And in the old days of the fire service, before there was all of this organized training, before Target Solutions and everything that's out there that you can learn from, the way that you learn the job was through a senior man. And again, at that time, it was all men. But the way you learned a job was through the senior firefighter in that station or in that department. And that created a form of informal mentoring. And so I think in the American Fire Service, I don't think that we're doing a really good job mentoring, which is why we kind of started this and why we're trying to, get this thing going. To add to that, and I'm in other groups with chief officers, and so I've got some small things going on, but it amazes me the number of chief officers that are not participating in some type of mentoring program. Now we have some close ones, Scott Thompson, Phil Jost, and some of these guys that we work with that do that. But if I was a fire chief, I would, and I guess it's just because I'm passionate about mentoring, I would want to be involved in all this stuff so I can pass this on, because my time at being a chief officer is going to be limited. And one day I'm going to be gone. And what better way to make sure the fire service is moving in the right direction? We're putting the right people that can handle problems, because the problems are changing. It's not as simple as it used to be back in the 50s. We have different problems, different challenges, and it's going to take a new style of leader. And the only way we can do that, I think, is through a lot of mentoring and a lot of development. So I think we're kind of missing the boat on developing our future leaders. And we could go down that rabbit hole about leaders, because there's millions of leadership books out there, and it still seems to be a problem, in my opinion.
I'm really glad you hit on that, because you are right. When I first came into the fire service, that the senior member, the senior man is what we called it then, but the senior member in the fire service, that was a coveted position. That was something that people didn't take lightly. And that's who you went to many times, because you were taught to go to that person. And I have felt like that has changed along the way. And you talk about chiefs having a passion for mentoring. I was just 2 weeks ago contacted by Fire Chiefs Association in Massachusetts. They wanted me to review their mentorship program. And I reviewed it, and I said a couple of things. Number one is they have so many good things in place. If you become a new chief in Massachusetts, they want you to be a part of this. These are a list of mentors throughout the state. These are people that kind of match up well with you as far as demographics, size of your department, all that stuff, and a list of numbers. And if you have a problem, call this number. We will match you with somebody and try to make that connection. So many good things. I told them really the only thing that they need to expand on is what we're doing right now. Like you just mentioned, you have social media now, you have podcasting now. We have ways to get information out there. You're not going to get everybody from the state to come to a Tuesday meeting once a month, because some people aren't going to drive 2.5 hours, but they could listen to, this monthly podcast that we do. And we talked about a few things that they're working on implementing right now, just to make sure that people mentorship is such a valuable thing. I mean, when you're gone, your knowledge goes with you, unless you do something to leave it with somebody else. That right there is one of the most, I guess, important reasons or I guess key points of why I'm an author in the first place. For me, being an author is another form of mentorship. if I can put these thoughts out there, and if I can help somebody by making sure that they don't make the same mistakes I made, because they have this blueprint to say, here's how I get from A to D without having to get tripped up in B and C like Frank Viscuso did. You can mentor through books, you can mentor through podcasts, you can mentor through, or just by listening to these things, you can find mentors. So thanks for hitting that topic. Ryan, I'll go to you. You have any thoughts on this?
Well, that's awesome what they got going there. We need more of that in the fire service for sure. But I'll start with what you said about Dave Grohl. And I think that's what you're doing right now, because I don't have any business being on here with the people that you bring on this podcast. So I'm incredibly appreciative to be here, because I think that's what you're doing right now for me. But what's going right and wrong, Rob and I, we've worked so well together because we think alike, and my answers are pretty similar. I think the outlet that we have through conferences and the things that are kind of starting to pop up, so that the people that just have a passion for the job, they are into the job, they want to talk about the job, they want to learn about the job. There's so many more avenues to be involved now through social media, but going to these conferences that are coming up all over the country, getting around other people who have that passion. Because as we know, when you have that passion at the firehouse, sometimes that can just overwhelm the people who are not. And so I think we're doing that right for sure. There seems to be a new groundswell of people who, number one, people out there teaching who really are good at knowing the job. I mean, these are the experts in the country, and having those people come around, I think Brothers in Battle, Cody, Trestrail, and Firemanship, for me was a game changer on the West Coast, because it was the first time where you had all of these people from all over the country, experts, guys from FDNY, who we just have no access to out here, who are coming in and just blowing our minds with leadership, tactics, strategy, all kinds of stuff. So I think we're doing that right, and I love seeing that. Wrong, I think right, what you guys talked about is there's some leadership pieces that I still feel are missing in the fire service. I think that, two big pieces are at the upper levels, understanding the why. And, and I'll bring it back to Cody again, because his passion is there's just not many like it. And it's so strong and it's so right on, but just losing focus of, we put people in risk for a reason. And I think that's just got a little bit lost. And I don't know, when it got lost, but from the day I started in the fire service in 23 years ago, which isn't that long, I feel like it's changed in that mindset of what we're willing to risk and why we do the things we do and why we search aggressively, and all of those things just kind of got lost in my career. And I think that piece is missing. And then the other piece that I think is just missing a little bit is, I see a lot of people use your book on their promotional, but sometimes I wonder if anybody at the higher ranks is reading it. And that goes back to taking care of your people and loving your people, supporting them. And I feel like that is just not always the case. And always, we're looking from the outside in at other agencies, but through our mentorship program, we get to have a lot of good conversations about what's happening in organizations across the country. And, we have people from volunteer firefighter to deputy chiefs of urban departments. And, there's just things that you're like, there's no way that could be a statement made, and they really care for their people. They really have their people's backs. And so I think that's a piece that we just got to keep. And that's why we're doing mentorship. That's why we're doing conferences, is we want to make sure the next generation of leaders, they carry both of those things forward. The understanding of the why, and the understanding of, you got to take care of your people if you want your people to take care of the people that we serve. So.
Yeah. Oh my, it's all connected so tightly. And it's recently I had gone out to do a conference where I was teaching all the officers in this particular department. I don't even want to say what state it is because of what I'm about to tell you next. And the way that I was introduced was, they basically said, we had him come in and talk to all of us, the administration, 6 months ago, and we thought this was valuable stuff, and we felt all the officers should get this training. And so then I gave the class, spent the next 4 to 5 hours with all the officers, and a lot of Q&A. I felt it was a great event, but there were a few that were pretty upset because they came up to me afterwards and said, it's frustrating for us to know that you were here 6 months ago talking to them and they're not implementing the stuff that you just taught us, because it makes sense, but they're not doing it. And this led to a conversation about things like, for example, micromanagement. These particular firefighters felt, hey, we're micromanaged. There's a question I ask at every conference. Rob, you've seen me speak a few times. You've heard me ask it. Raise your hand if you feel that you, at some point in your career, have worked for a micromanager, is the question I ask. I've never seen less than 90% of the hands in the room go up. So 90% of the hands, and I mean thousands and thousands and thousands of people, 90% of their hands go up when I say, raise your hand if you've worked for a micromanager. I used to say, raise your hand if you currently work for a micromanager. Then I realized that's too loaded of a question because your boss is in the room. So what I started to think about was this. Yeah, we have a micromanagement problem. Do we have a problem where nobody likes being told what to do ever? And they perceive everything as being micromanaged. And so I started really contemplating this and saying, maybe we need to just do a better job of giving direction and not making it seem like it's, hey, I'm going to micromanage you. But at the same time, this is what I've learned more being a baseball coach than I did being a fire chief. From the age, my youngest son is 12 now. At the age of 7, we started a travel baseball team with him. We're still going. Some of the players are there. My son just asked at dinner last night, who was part of the original team when we were 7? And we named the ones that were part of it. And some have moved on. Some aren't playing anymore. Some are playing for other teams. And they'll all come together and maybe play all-stars again. And this is what I learned with this conversation. We never stopped going. We kept going. If people stopped for whatever reason, well, first of all, it's youth sports I'm talking about. But in that process of going, for sure, there's some people, a coach or two, that may have left in the course of 5 years that says, hey, I don't like the way Frank Viscuso runs things. Understandable. One of the things I always did was say, if there's anything you want to do at practice, let me know. We'll work it in and you can run the practice if you want. I've always said that. But sometimes they don't hear that. They hear, we're doing this drill again, or because I believe in the basics. Or we're going to, why are we doing this and why aren't we doing that? So they won't ask. They won't make a suggestion, but inside they'll be upset because I'm running things. But if I didn't run things, and if you guys didn't run things, sometimes it just doesn't get run at all. You understand where I'm going with this? So they could sit here and say, oh, you know what? Hey, he's a micromanager because he's always the one putting the plan together. When I'm saying I'm not a micromanager at all, I'm just a person who's finishing. I have an end goal. And the end goal for that particular group is this. At the age of 12, if we do things right, they could play in Williamsport in the Little League World Series. There's a chance at that. So we're working to try to make that happen. So I'm just throwing this out there because you guys are triggering some thoughts in me. And I don't know if there's anything you want to add on that topic, if I'm triggering any thoughts in you at all about micromanaging or giving direction, or because what I like about you guys is you started Young Officers on Fire because you had a purpose. And we just kind of uncovered some of what that purpose is: mentorship, training, educating, bringing it to the next level.
Frank,
do you find any of the things I'm talking about of value in your journey of getting to where you want to go? And where is it that you do want to go with Young Officers on Fire? What is your ultimate goal?
Frank,
Rob, I guess I could start with you.
Okay. Going back to what you were saying about with the kids and that they may not be hearing, or what you're saying is, do we have a generation of firefighters that just are not accepting whatever assignment it is? And I think it leads to one of the other issues. And I've lectured on this and I've done a little bit of study, and I need to put more time and effort into it. But I think we have a followership issue, and how the military does a really good job of it, because the military, they've got very strict and they can do just about anything, right? So when you come in, everybody's the same, everybody looks the same because they want you to look the same. They want to strip you of your identity. And they're very, very deliberate on how they focus your education, how you learn things. But you're not in boot camp the entire time when you're in the military. You learn through followership. You learn to be a good follower, which leads into being a better leader, because over a period of time, and it's like with firefighters too, early on in your career, a lot of people are telling you what to do. They're guiding you along the way. And it's your job to receive that and take that in. But when you're good at doing that, receiving that and listening and processing, being able to understand the difference between somebody telling me and constantly telling me what to do and not trusting me, because true leadership is entrusting and empowering your people. And if you can't do that, so that, I think that's part of the problem. We do have leaders that don't empower their people, don't trust their people, and they truly are micromanagers. They want to keep control of everything, because there's a level of liability. And Ryan kind of hit on it when he was talking about some of the things with risk, is that if we were to talk about one of the other issues in the fire service is, are we risk averse? And that could be, that could be a debate that could go on for a long time. But the fire service kind of has changed. And we're worried so much about liability now that a lot of the leaders that are in positions are not willing to empower their people, because they are the ones that are holding the accountability for the actions of somebody else. And so I think, one, if we could focus more on followership and teach the generation that's coming through how to be better followers, then I think in the future, it will help them become better leaders. And you had mentioned like the Massachusetts, mentoring for the chief officers. And I would say one of the problems is a lot of chief officer groups do mentoring for chief officers. Once you make chief, we're going to mentor you. Well, we need to mentor you earlier. That's why this is, why this is young officers on fire. We want to mentor the firefighter that's like getting ready to take that leap. Yeah, we have company officers that want to become battalion chiefs, and we have battalion chiefs that want to become, senior chiefs and deputies and assistant chiefs. But the reality is, where we need to hit the firefighter and the company officers to help them, because you've got to be a good leader before you get to the opportunity to kind of get welcomed into the group. And it's good that a group would have mentorship. That's kind of like that formal mentoring where you were in the corporate world, where it's like, you've made it, now you've got to go through certain things and get certain things checked off and make sure you understand these things. But going back to the followership, if we're talking to firefighters, we're helping them understand what leadership really is, and that they can differentiate between, I'm being told what to do and I'm being controlled. That's the key, because then they will be better down the road.
Right. So, and here's where we get into this debate, and this one frustrates me, when people are like, oh, here we go. Now this department only is concerned with what uniform you're wearing. No, they're not concerned with what uniform you're wearing, but you better look like a uniformed agency, because you do all work together. Because doing what I now do for a living, I will sit down sometimes in a fire station with 45 people that work for one department, then they look like they work for 45 different departments. And it seems like those particular organizations also have the problem with everybody's just concerned about their own thing. They're in their own world. There's no set goals. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of conflict. I actually am one of the people that do think it's connected. And I'm not saying you need to focus on everybody being in uniform. What I'm saying is it's all part of it. We are a uniformed agency. So look like you belong to, and I want to be careful here, because I don't want to cross this bridge where people are saying, oh, you would put that above performance on the fireground. No, I connect it to performance on the fireground. I actually connect them together. Because if I know that I have discipline, and I know that people have pride in wearing that uniform, and all these things are connected, I think one thing can build off another, And I love what you just said about mentor people before they get there. one of the I have a class I call Officer Development Workshop, and I hate the title. So I tell people it's really Leadership Development Workshop. I want people in that class who are not officers yet, because the last thing I want is for them to become an officer and say, wait a minute, I didn't know any of this. Know it beforehand. Start acting like an officer before you get there. And how do you do that? Well, you have officers around you. You don't need a class for it. You could learn from people through podcasts, listening to what Rob just said. You could listen to or read a book, watch people in your organization, watch people in other organizations. Ryan, sounds like you have mentors that don't belong to your department, but you learn from them other ways. I think we all do. And how about you, Ryan? One of the things you said that actually bothered me earlier was you feel like you don't, in your own words, that you don't belong on this podcast. I strongly disagree with that. You got something on behind you right there. You got that symbol on your wall, which is the same symbol I have on my wall. And you got that 3-letter word there that I have hanging up right there. Mine says Dad's Place. Yours says Dad with Hudson and Camden in the background. There's no difference between you, me, and Rob. Your passion is there. Your desire to want to be the best that you can be. Your love for family, your love for service and the fire service. And with all of that also comes frustration, because when we care, that's when frustration sets in. Would you agree with that, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. That's been definitely the most challenging thing for the entirety of my career, is trying to find that balance of, the expectation of what I think the fire service should be, where it is, where I am, where the people are around me are. One of the most kind of freeing things for me that happened a few years after I became an officer was I realized that I don't meet my own expectations. And so I stopped trying to think that anybody else would meet expectations I've set for them. They're just too high. They're too high for myself. And if I try to hold people to that sort of expectation, it's going to create conflict. It's going to create failure. So I would agree. And on the leadership fellowship thing, I think, like everything, there's somewhere in the middle, and our mantra is follow me, right? But not follow me because I have bugles. Follow me because I invested in becoming a leader. I spent the time, so I'm competent. If one of my people has a problem on their off day, I'm going to come to their house and take care of it. Like all of the things that take such a long time to build, so that you have people want to follow you, is a big piece of that. And so I do think that followership is based on, am I following somebody who is worth following, or who I think is invested in me, invested in themselves? So I think it's definitely two parts. And so on the leadership side, we all have places to grow in leadership. Everybody does. So that's why we're here, right? That's why we started this company and our mentorship group, and is we all have places to grow in leadership. So.
And is there something that you guys, either one of you, I'll start with you, Rob, like a certain quality that you look at and say, if I'm going to follow, this is what I look for in a leader. If I'm going to follow something, like for me, for example, I want someone who's passionate and has a clear vision of where they want to go and can convey that. And I want someone that I completely feel I can trust this person, because that's becoming more and more rare right now. Like I can trust them. I know like they're doing this for the right reasons. They truly care. Is there something that you in particular look at and say, this is the type of quality I'm looking for in a leader?
Yeah, I don't think it's one particular one, because obviously, if I were to pick one, it would be trust, that I can trust them and they can trust me. But if I were to kind of, slice it out a little bit more, and just like, what are the things that build up for a good leader for me? And I'll take it from General Mattis. He has the 3 C's of leadership, and that is caring, competence, and conviction. And I think those kind of lend to, you can follow caring to their trusting and so on and so forth. But I think when I look at a leader, somebody I would love to follow, They care about the fire service. They care about people. They care about me. They care about their family. And they're competent. And that doesn't mean that they know everything, because that's one of the things that I learned early on in the fire service when I was promoting to company officer is like, man, I've got to have all skill sets. I got to be ready to do anything. And the reality is that I just have to be, somebody that can facilitate and can, have connections. I don't have to do everything. I just got to have the connections or the ability, the humility to be able to say, I don't know, let's learn it together. So competence is really important in being a good leader, because, how are you to lead when you don't understand, and it's not that you have to understand everything, but you've got to have a good basis of it. And then conviction that kind of leads to the passion. You stand behind things, there is a line, very clear line of what you believe is right and wrong. And I think when I take those and you add trust and somebody that's willing to give me, and they want to have fun. I mean, I want to have fun when I'm at work, when in my days off, helping other people, or if I'm mentoring, meeting with somebody. It's like, I don't want to make this all business. I want to have fun. I want to enjoy. Again, goes back to caring for people, and I want to enjoy the time with them. So those would be the things that I'd be looking at for my leaders.
Yeah. I once said that to, when I was a deputy chief, I said that to some of the officers that worked on our shift. I said, I want to hear the firefighters laughing every day. I want to hear that. I want to know that they're coming to work and are enjoying it. They come with a smile on their face. We'll train hard. We take the job seriously. Yeah, we're going to hold people accountable, but at the same time, I want them to want to be here. And I think that's one of the keys you talked about. You don't have to know anything. When I've done some research and read a few books on Disney, trying to understand how they developed a successful culture. One of the things I read said, not in these words, I'm going to paraphrase it, their employees are not supposed to say, I don't know. They can say, I don't know. And let me get this right, but they're not supposed to leave it at, I don't know. They need to get your issue resolved. So the way that they go about doing that is to bring in someone who can resolve the issues they can't, whether it's to call someone on the radio and ask them to come to the front desk that can help resolve the issue, or to pick up that phone and call that office that can give the answer that they're looking for, and not just leave you with, I'm sorry, I can't help you. And my experience for the times that I've been there has been just that, where they've always were able to resolve the issue one way, shape, or form. And in this world, it's hard to, there's what, 56,000 people that work for Disney. Can you imagine having 56,000 people that you need to try to train to provide great service? And in chapter or page 5 of this book, Creating Magic, and I think I have this memorized now, with the Lee Cockrell, the former vice president of Walt Disney World's Resorts, wrote this: what really drives the magic at Disney is the extraordinary service. How does Disney maintain that high quality of service? Each of the 59,000 cast members is trained to treat each and every guest with the utmost care and respect. And they do this consistently because they are treated exactly the same way by Disney leadership, with the utmost care and respect. So what he basically says in that paragraph is this: if we want the people that work for us to provide great service for all these people that walk through our gates every day and into our resorts every day, we need to make this a place where they want to be. That's what I took from it. And then in that book, he talks about making it that place that you want to be. And Clint Pulver, I have not read his book, but I think the title of his book is I Love It Here. Here's a guy that, when he's a motivational speaker and a drummer, you'd love him, Rob. He incorporates drums into his talks and all. It's a studio level drummer. And he interviewed people and about their environment where they work. And one of the questions, or one of the things that he was drawn to early on, was when people say, hey, I really love working here. And he's like, well, let me talk to you a little bit more than these people over here that aren't happy. Why do you love working here? And he started zoning in on that question, finding people who love their job and saying, why do you love it here? And again, I haven't read the book yet, but I just read that that's what the book is about. And I said, that's very intriguing to me, Because here's a guy that just really captured this essence of, wait, you know what? Let's stop talking about what's wrong with things and find out what's right. And Ryan, I don't know, you have any thoughts on the topic?
I think Rob covered a lot of it. Definitely someone, and I forget who coined this term, but it's been floating around for a while. Probably the Fit to Fight Fire guys, but someone who leads themselves, someone who sets that example. And that's one of the reasons why Rob has been a mentor to me is he's that guy. He's the guy who goes out and teaches forcible entry, even though he's a battalion chief. So that's a big piece for me. And the other piece is back that we've talked about is that caring piece. I tell the new guys, look at when there's a tragedy, look at who's the first to sign up to be there. And you'll find those are the same people who are teaching, who are training. Those are the officers you want to work for. Those are the firefighters you want on your crew. It's the same people. It always is. And I've watched that over the several years, and I'm like, yep, it's the same names, the same people who are there to mow the guy's lawn, who's out for surgery. And I think
we're talking
huge.
like 10%, right?
Yeah.
It's the same 10%.
100. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, I've seen that too. In my department, I wrote about that a little bit, about certain guys that were always answering that call when Superstorm Sandy hits. They're the first ones to volunteer to go help out. And when it's time to, senior picnic, they're the first ones that are there grilling and cooking, same things. You guys, Rob, you mentioned your wife, you live in different states. And Jody, I met her out in Pensacola Beach. I love your relationship with her. From what I see, I only see the social media aspect of more than anything else, but there seems to be a lot of love and support there. And, one of the things that I noticed is that she's very proud of you. When you were speaking, I believe it was the first time at Kurt Isaacson's conference out there in Pensacola Beach. She was the first one blasting it all over social media, how proud she was of you. And I remember thinking, man, that's really cool. Talk about, and I'm also going to ask you this, Ryan, with your family as well, but how you incorporate your family into the fire service life.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that's kind of funny is just the other day on social media, Amanda Moore, Corley's wife.
Yep.
Corley responded and said, "Hey, the number one hype wife." And I came back and said, there must be a college for this because my wife is the same.
Yeah, and it's funny because you did mention two wives that I put in the same exact category when it comes to that. I told Corley that too. I'm like, I want to hire your wife as my PR agent because she does a fantastic job.
Yeah, my wife she's a superstar. She is my number one supporter. I should start by saying I've not always been the best when it comes to family stuff. I mean, I've been a very active firefighter over my career, and I've spent a lot of time in college and spent a lot of time teaching and learning and everything. And so I have not always been the best of husband, the best of father. So I've had to learn this, and sadly, I'm learning, and I'm just really getting into the stride over the last probably decade. And my career is coming to an end here in the future. But yeah, I've been very fortunate to have a very supportive wife. She tells a story sometimes with some of the other wives that she was talking to her mom one time, and she was complaining about, I was out teaching, and her mom's like giving her some perspective. Is he out drinking with his buddies? Is he out chasing girls? Is he out just playing by himself? No, he's out trying to better himself, better other firefighters, and providing for the family. I mean, what else could you ask for? And I won't say that was a pivotal moment for my wife, but that was definitely a moment for her. And so what's been great is I take her on the road with me a lot. And she probably doesn't travel with me with Brothers in Battle because just some of the places that we're going and teaching, but like Kurt Isaacson's, going to COBC, anything that's in Florida where a lot of the wives are coming. And to credit to Kurt, I remember he had said a long time ago on a podcast, he was talking about COBC and why he has the spouse track at COBC. He wants the wives to come. He wants all of us to be there and that we can share in this. And then that has now led to my wife's involved with Fire Wife Life, and it's another organization. Kathy Edwards.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah. So, and they just had a retreat just this last weekend. And so she's now a part of that. She's a regional director or something. And so it's been really cool for our lives on this parallel to, she's on one side of it, still moving in the same direction that I am. It's associated with the fire service. So it really has helped. Now, it's not the answer for everybody, because I know that there's probably some wives out there that would say, there's no way in heck that I'm going to join an organization that just puts me in this box, this silo of I'm a wife. You know, they want to have their own things, and I get it. But for my wife and I, it's awesome. It's awesome. It works out really, really well. And she's retired now, so it makes it really easy for her to travel along when we're on these shows. And it's great. You know, I think we are better as a couple. We were concerned when the kid went to college back in the day. It's like, okay, we're going to be an empty nest. And this is like that hurdle that you got to get over. Is like, do you really enjoy time with one another, or was the focus on the kids? And we made it through it, no problem. And now we just, you know, with life, travel, with teaching and everything, it's been great.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. Ryan, how about you with your wife? I met your wife when I came out there to Washington for your conference, but talk about how you incorporate your wife and your kids, how you get them involved.
So I'm not a music guy, but if she was going to be in a band, she'd be like the bass player. She's kind of in the back, you know, supporting, and, you know, a key piece. Just, you know, we got 2 young kids, and she's been incredibly supportive. I went back to school and finished that process. And, you know, she champions me from the sidelines, and she's been involved with the conferences. And so having my family part of it, you know, I'll tell the story about when you came out, Chief. And so I had my oldest son, who was, he would have been 9 at the time.
Yep.
And he wanted to sit in the front row. And so I was like, okay, we let him miss school. We're going to let him come to the conference for one day. I was like, all right, if you're going to come one day, you know, come see Chief Escusa. Like you're going to walk away with something from this. And so, you know, he will never forget, Chief. Throughout the day, you would look at him and say, you know, Hudson, what do you think about this? Or, you know, just tie it into him. And it was incredible. It was an incredible experience for him and me. He will never forget that. And both my boys want to be firefighters. I don't know if I'm sold on that, but and probably will change. But it's very cool having them experience that and see what it's all about. And, you know, that environment at the conference where everybody's they're just ecstatic to be there, and they can feel that brotherhood and sisterhood, that connection with people. And then to get to be around, you know, I think I said it at the conference too, like, and I believe this wholeheartedly, is that the people who stay relevant are people who they just care about people. And, you know, they reach out and they touch people in just various different ways, conversations. And man, you reached out to my kid that day, and he'll never forget that.
I remember at least 4 or 5 times redirecting the class just to speak to Hudson, thinking this is a valuable moment for me to be able to, because I remember telling him, you don't have to believe in other people's opinions of you, you know. And this is something I remember talking to all our baseball players about one day when they were, I think, 9 years old. I'm always trying to build them up. Okay. And then there was a moment where I said, you know, it's my son had a problem with a kid in school. And I said, you know, you don't have to believe what he says about you. It doesn't matter. He can have his opinion. Let him have it. It's like if I try to give you this gift and you decide, hey, I don't want the gift, guess what? You don't have to take it. Same thing with words. And so one of the things that I did, I said, I'm going to end this practice differently than any other practice. So I ended the practice saying to them things like this: I don't know why I even keep you on his team. You're not a very good baseball player. And you're not and I said something negative about 4 or 5. At first they were shocked, and then they started giggling because they knew, all right, coach is just kidding. And then I said, all right, let me stop before I go all around. Did any of you think that I was telling you the truth when I said these things? And they're like, well, we didn't know at first. I said, of course, it's not the truth. Do you really think for a second you're a bad baseball player? You're one of the best kids in this age group. So clearly you're not. The point I'm trying to make is you don't have to accept someone else's opinion of you. Let them have it. If somebody says that to you, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter, because this is what these kids at that age now were going through. And speaking of young kids, I want to tell you something I just learned, because maybe somebody who's listening to this can take this part away from it. A few days ago, I got very upset with one of my boys and reacted in a way that I feel justified, but I wish I didn't do it. Meaning this, I felt justified that I should have been upset with him, but I wish I handled it a little bit differently, because sometimes that hot-blooded Italian from Hudson County, New Jersey, rears its ugly head. And right after that, I kind of felt bad. I shouldn't have been that firm with him, shouldn't have raised my voice the way I did, shouldn't have responded the way I did. It was about a day later. I'm listening to something, and this is, Rob, to your point, what I love about social media, you can get a lot of great things, especially if you follow certain people. And one of the people that I followed says, same thing. I got really upset with my son one day, and I was talking to a good friend, and here's what they said to me. Imagine that you're 85 years old. You're 85 years old, and you got, for just one moment, for one 10-minute moment, period, to come back to the moment when your kids are young and are 9, 10, 11 years old. But that's the moment you come back to. What are you going to do with that 10 minutes? Because you know you got to go back to 85 as soon as those 10 minutes are up. I thought, holy crap. That just made me think, I have to be better. You know, we played baseball games the other day. Of course, I'm the base coach, and I make 2 bad calls that get both of my boys thrown out at different times in the game. Okay. Sending them to steal home when I shouldn't have, telling another one to steal when he shouldn't have. I was trying to be really aggressive. Right. And at the same time, I'm like, what are you doing? But it's my call. When we got home, I'm like, I got to take the coach hat off. So I take the coach hat off and I say, you know what, guys? I said, new Mario movie's out. You want to go see it? They're like, really? Can we invite a friend? Yeah. And next thing I know, I take the boys out. I don't want to go watch the new Mario movie, but I take the boys out and I'm sitting down and I watch them more than I watch the movie. Watching them giggle, enjoy the moment, saying, man, I got a 12 and a 13-year-old right here that I'm going to be grateful I gave them and enjoyed and spent this moment with them. It's for them. Just yesterday, I just got really comfortable, got back from the ball field. I sit down, turn on TV. My 13-year-old says, Dad, you want to go in the basement and work out? Yeah, I do. Inside, I'm going, no, I don't. Like say, no, I'm in the basement going, I'm going to want this moment one day. I'll want it back. I just want to put this all out there. It's on my mind. I kind of knew at some point we were going to talk about families on this, and I wanted to put my 2 cents into for people that are listening. Be in that moment with your kids. And on that note, is there anything you guys want to touch on? And I am going to ask you how people can get a hold of you. I'm going to ask you to talk about your next conference. But anything you want to touch on before we wrap up, just about the fire service in general, about training, preparation, passion, or anything.
One. And be sure to check out deerhollowrecovery.com.
What was that?
Sorry.
You all right?
I think we have a fourth person just come in.
I apologize. No, I was trying to pull up our conference dates. I want to make sure I got it right. No, don't say them wrong. I want to see them, not say them. So go ahead, Rob. I'm going to pull up our conference dates for this.
Well, you know, Frank, to your point that you were just talking about with the kids, is like this is the ultimate leader, right? The ultimate leader makes sacrifices, and I mean, taking the opportunity in a rough game where the kids got thrown out, and you made the decision, and separating them from that so they can separate, and that's not the last thing in their mind. They're enjoying something, but you probably don't want to go see Mario Brothers, or you obviously, I mean, you said you didn't want to work out, but there's a sacrifice there that you're doing that captures the moment, and it makes that connection. And as leaders and as parents, that's ultimately what we need to do, is connect with the people, and we build trust and we build all these things. And that, so it's really important. I guess in wrapping up about talking about the fire service, I've been very fortunate through my career. I've had a lot of opportunities. I've had a lot of individuals that have lent me a hand, brought me in, teaching with Cody and teaching with Kurt, and, having the opportunity to be with Scott Thompson. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. Ray McCormick, Frank Lieb. I mean, the list just goes on. Yourself. I've been very fortunate through my career to have these opportunities. And if it wasn't for others, I don't know that I would be where I'm at and have the ability to be able to share. And so because it was shared with me, I want to give back as much as I can and as long as I can. And, my time actually in uniform on the line as part of the fire service is probably coming to an end here really quick, but that doesn't mean that I got to roll over and just be done with it all. I mean, I look forward to maintaining these relationships. And I would just say to the listeners, young firefighters, reach out to people that you can see that are, I want to say movers and shakers, but you can see that they are engaged, and make a connection, network, not just in your community or in your region. Get outside of your region. It's okay to learn some other way of doing things. I'll tell you, and I'll admit it, is that smoothbore and combination nozzles both put out fire. And if you just learn about other things, it only just makes you a better firefighter in the end. And lastly, just appreciate life, because we are in the profession that we see a lot of life taken away at a very short period of time. And when you are getting to the end of your career, or when you're in this, is like really step back every once in a while and take a look at everything, and just like appreciate the fact that you have a great job, you're doing great things as a firefighter, you're helping people out, you're probably being compensated in some fashion if you're a career firefighter in a decent wage to be able to take care of a family, and just appreciate life, because it goes pretty quick. So.
Great advice. Great advice. Brian, how about you?
I don't know if I can follow that.
I don't know if I can either.
Great.
That's why I passed it on to you.
That's great, Rob. Mentorship. It's obviously that's why we're on here. That's why we're having this conversation, is we've found so much value in mentorship, and it's on so many different levels. And I think you've got to find it no matter where you are at in your career, at different levels, inside the fire service, outside the fire service, from real people, from podcast. What you just said just resonated with me, Chief, about, I'm the same way. I can so overreact to my kids, and you just don't get those moments back. And but mentorship has just been a part of my life, from being a father to a husband. Every part of my life, I've had people that I've looked up to, and sometimes I feel like I'm kind of like a pound puppy. Like, people have just adopted me throughout, my entire adult life, that are a little bit older. They've been there before. And I've made a lot of mistakes, but I've made a lot less mistakes because I've had people who could just steer me in the right direction, who've already been there and done that. So that's why we're here, is mentorship, is finding those people and seeking them out and taking their advice and making yourself better in every aspect of your life. Yeah,
because they're out there. The information's out there. The people are out there. You just have to seek it. You said you were looking up the dates for your next conference. You want to just touch on that real quick?
Yeah. So we moved up to Spokane, Washington this year, which is Eastern Washington. It's a little bit bigger airport, a little easier to get into. But we're going to be starting off our pre-conference Sunday, May 21st. And our pre-conference is all peer support day. So we are going to have a local trauma doc, Dr. Kishel, and then I know Dina, so Chief Dina Ali is going to come out, who does fantastic peer support training. And so that's going to be the entirety of day one. And then we'll get into the main conference on Monday, the 22nd, which is Chief Thompson, the Functional Fire Company. And then on day two is split, the engine officer with Chief Kyle Romagus, and the ladder officer with Captain Arthur Ashley. And then the last day, we're going to follow up with the great Mo Davis teaching aggressive command. Chief Mo Davis.
That's right. I was just out in not too far from where Mo works out in Houston. And a couple cool things happened is I think I was about probably maybe 35 minutes away from him as far with traffic and everything in consideration. I was in Northwest Texas or Northwestern Texas. And at one point I'm teaching and I look in the back room and who's standing there with Mo Davis. And I thought, hey, that's cool. Mo's here. And next break, I'm going to go talk to him for a little bit. But by the time the next break, a call came in and he had to bolt and he texted me saying I couldn't stay. A call came in. And then right after that, we went to see Clyde Gordon at his station. And then I went to see the Astros play a game of baseball. It was a lot of fun spending out there. And that was a day, by the way, that I also, it was actually the next day, we went to Marcus Luttrell's house. And I got to sit down with Marcus and Morgan Luttrell, from Lone Survivor, signed a book for me. I have it right here. And we got to talk a little bit about, that was a great moment. We got to talk about preparing for success. And he didn't say this, but I kind of want to end with this because it's something just before I got on this call, I was doing a little bit of writing on this topic and that mindset of pressure is a privilege. Pressure is a privilege. And what I mean by that is this. If you are a new officer, for sure, you're going to be in a point in your journey where you feel pressure. Well, pressure is a privilege because somebody put you in that position. You got yourself there, but somebody put you in this position because they believed in you to a point they said, well, we think they can handle this. They can learn from it. They can grow from it and is up for the challenge. And it's almost like saying, if you're not in the fire service related to a sport, if somebody's given the opportunity to now play quarterback for their high school team, hey, you know what? You're going to feel the pressure of being a quarterback on a high school team. Pressure's a privilege. Someone believed in you to put you in that point. And nobody's expected, in my book, nobody's expected to just get into a position and perform at the highest level. Sometimes it's going to take a little bit to get there. But if we do things right on your way there, you could start performing, like you said, Rob, before you get there. We had that happen in our department where, no joke, a conversation between my brother and I, we were two deputy chiefs on two different groups. And we said, look, you have the number one firefighter on the list to be promoted to captain, and I have the number two. There's a good likelihood they're both going to get promoted. So why don't we both train them as if they're officers now? So when they get that promotion, whatever group they get transferred to, it's going to be a seamless transition into that role. So we did what you talked about, Rob, is that informal mentorship. It wasn't even us doing the mentoring. We got a couple other officers involved saying, hey, so you're going to be an officer. So we're going to have you work at this station under these two officers. You'll be doing radio reports. You'll be doing written reports. You're going to be running a drill here and there. You're going to be doing exactly what they do. So when you do get promoted, you move right into that like you've been doing it for the past 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And that's what we started doing. And that's how our informal mentorship program played out, the one that I talk about in the classes. But so wanted to touch on that. I'll give you a chance to wrap up with a word or two or a sentence or a paragraph, whatever you want. Rob, I'll start with you.
Well, on your note there on pressure, you think of like with professional athletes, they want the ball, right? There's a lot of pressure with having the ball, the final shot. Most people remember Michael Jordan, some just like buzzer shots that you're just going, wow, and he wins the whole game. Same thing with baseball, pitching, wanting to be the one up to bat. And the thing to remember, and you said it, preparation, the thing to remember is being privileged for that pressure. We had to prepare to get there. And even though somebody reaches down and lifts you up and says, hey, we're going to put you into this pressure spot, and think of it as a company officer, if you prepared, you want that pressure spot. You're ready for that pressure spot. And I've talked to a number of firefighters and officers like, I'm not ready for battalion chief. I mean, just talking with Dina, right before Dina was promoting battalion chief and working with her, she'd say, I don't know that I'm ready for battalion chief. And I said, Dina, you're never ready for battalion chief. You will never be ready for battalion chief. you've prepared this to this point, and now you have the opportunity to show that you're ready to a certain level. And then that, I guess, the pressure, as we're talking about, it's what develops you as the next battalion chief or whatever it is, company officer, whatever it is. So there's definitely this relationship of the pressure moment and being there and why you're there. But my last comments are, we will see you. Ryan and I are going to be at FDIC next week, so we'll hopefully run into you at FDIC. We're looking for the cool classes on leadership and mentoring and good firefighters and some brother and sisterhood there. And then I will be at COBC the second week of May.
Yeah, I'll be there as well. So I'll see you there as well if our paths cross. I think I'm there on Tuesday.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be there the whole week. I don't know which day that I'm teaching. It's always a surprise with Kurt sometimes, but I will be there. Then the following week is our conference. I'm keynoting at the Lake of the Ozarks in the end of July. I'm keynoting at Mile High in the fall. So I've got a lot of really cool things going on, and you can reach me on Facebook, Rob Fisher 72, Twitter, Instagram. I don't get into Twitter and Instagram that much, or you can just email me, robfisher72@gmail.com, or just give me a call, 425-870-0129. And I know that's going out to everybody, but I love talking shop and I love helping everybody out. So
you're like me. While I was talking to you, I just got a text from a firefighter that my number's accessible on my website and everything. Maybe it'll get to a point where I'm like, maybe it's not a good idea, but right now it feels really good to be accessible, and try to help people. And I know that's where your heart is too. So I appreciate that you put it all out there. So thank you for that. And you just mentioned Kurt Isaacson. You're like, yeah, you never really know. Like, so I have a buddy that's going down there teaching for the first time. And he's like, I don't know what day I'm teaching. I'm not sure what topic he wants me to teach on. I don't know when I start. I go, yeah, I don't either. The thing I get firmed up is just tell me what day to teach, and I'll give you my flight information, and I'll be there. And because he's just like, no, just do what you want. I'm like, okay. But that's what I love about it. But you talk about trust, right? There's a guy that says, hey, Rob, you're speaking for me at this conference. Thank you. And I trust you. Here's your day. Do your thing. And there's a level of comfort there, or complete disorganization. I don't know what it is.
Well, on the point of trust, I mean, this is kind of funny. We were down there for ODP, one of the other conferences Kurt does. And John Norman was supposed to be there, and because of COVID, it was during the COVID time, he couldn't be there. And so we were all taking pieces of the John Norman book to teach. And on Wednesday, Kurt and Todd Edwards, who's another person of CFT, come to me and say, hey, would you teach the truck portion out of John Norman's book? I'm like, you got to be kidding me. When? Tomorrow. And so me and Mo Davis stayed up late till 3:00 in the morning, trying to put together a presentation. But Kurt and Todd had trust in me, and I'm not a New York City firefighter, and I'm not at any level that John Norman is. But hey, would you take this on? And we trust that you're going to be able to give a good show. And Mo and I had an awesome class. We had a great time doing it, and I appreciate it. So there's another.
It's a perfect example. It's a perfect example. Yeah. And Todd Edwards is a great guy. I was just in Jacksonville, Alabama. I get to the airport and I'm ready to fly out. And he texts me, says, hey, are you still here? You want to meet up? And I'm like, oh man, I'm just leaving right now. He just got there. I'm like, our paths crossed. That's a beautiful thing about what we do. You mentioned a couple people like Ray McCormick. I was out in Seattle last time I was out there. I go to the airport. He's just landing. The guy that dropped me off is now picking him up. And I'm like, hey, nice talking to you. Sorry, we don't have much time to talk, but it is cool that when we get to FDIC and Kurt's conferences, we get that time to have dinner, that fellowship, and it's awesome. Ryan, it's your show to wrap up, my friend. Thank you again, both of you, for being on. I appreciate you. But Ryan, any final thoughts?
I loved the conversation on pressure, and I'll finish on that because it really ties into kind of what we stand for on Young Officers on Fire. And I'll say that the most pressure I ever felt was my senior firefighter and driver, or one of my senior firefighters and drivers, and paramedic. I was out with her family and her dad, who was a career military man. He looked at me with his two granddaughters in his arms, and the last thing he said to me was get my baby home. And that's pressure, right? And so, our message out to the people who want to be leaders and who are leaders is like, you owe the people who you lead, and it's a major responsibility. And I think you have to appreciate, like, I want to know my people's kids. I want that pressure because it's real. And I think if you appreciate that, it will make you feel like you've never learned enough. You've never trained enough. You've never been mentored enough. And that should keep your fire burning, which is why we're here. So thank you so much.
I can't even think of a better way to wrap up than what you just said. So thank you for bringing it back home the way it did. Boys, men, thank you. I hope people that listen to this took some value away and attend your conference. If they have the ability to do so, reach out to you guys if they're looking for a mentorship speaker or whatever it may be. But I appreciate you guys for giving me the time to talk with you today on Flashpoint.
Thanks for having us on, Chief.